This is my hardcore Iron Man, and I can only play it in a PvP world. I now have some amazing new gear, but I need to keep upgrading and trading my stats to ensure my survival.
What's up, Caesar? Appreciate the happy birthday, brother.
Because half the items in the game are locked behind Slayer, so we just have to do it. But anyway, on my Slayer journey, I will do every single clue scroll in hopes of Blessed Hide Body or Blessed Hide Boots. I also need to bank Dragon Bones for getting 70 prayer on the Wilderness Altar. Don't forget, this account has a 1 mil bounty and plays with private chat on. Before I continue my Slayer adventure, I've got some wild pies left over from the whip grind, so I could boost up to 85 Slayer from 80, and it should be fairly quick to get these dragon boots. Hey, the dragon shoes, they are plus
Any luck securing parts? We just started.
Extra max hits when meleeing my tasks. Once again, I am in the absolute pits right now. 23 Slayer points. Thankfully, I can do that. I've just got absolutely no skips left, so yeah, gonna have to go and grind some points, I think. 71 defense, no more limiting my combat stats. Now I've got my Abyssal Whip, gonna be training on controlled, and the combat level is gonna go through the roof.
Yeah, I'm over 8 minutes ago. Grab my food.
Basically the same as 126s. The plan is to do 9 tasks with Toriel and then the 10th with Konar. This gets me a ton of Slayer points that I can use on whatever I want. I'm gonna be doing bursting tasks as well, because they're just such good XP, and it means I can kill Skotizo for hard clues and work on my God D-Hide goals. What's going on here? We've got a Dragon Med on the rare drop table. Still looking for the Dragon Spear. Come on now. Where's the useful one? The boy, Steve. Of course we're going on a Zook task.
Baby, can't you see I'm calling? A guy like you should wear a warning. It's dangerous. I'm falling.
Don't let me catch any of you doubting me. This is 100k Slayer XP guaranteed. Every Inferno.
Go. Appreciate you, Caesar.
Time. I'm not dying anymore. Spiritual creatures. We get it, Steve. You don't like the Gap Yard crowd. But this gives me a good opportunity to do some God Wars dungeon and kill them for Casey and get Slayer. I am doing Saradin God Wars again. I'm killing those creatures upstairs for Casey. Getting the Slayer XP. So efficient as we go. New gear is about to put into action. Nice. Okay, I need 3 of those to make the blade. I currently have the Saradomin sword. Still don't have the Armadyl crossbow or the Saradomin hilt. But we're only 100 KC, so I can't complain yet. But I'm definitely happy to make a start on that God sword. No, there's no way. That's the best possible thing. Armadyl crossbow, let's pick that up. Let's get it. Oh my days, that's so good. I don't even know if I want to stay right now to get anything else. The ACB is going to be so useful for Inferno and everything. I can use the Super Bolts. I can use the Dragon Bolts with this. No, it is really good. It is really good. Oh, that's amazing. I've decided I'm not going to continue Saradomin. We've got 15 kills this trip, which is pretty damn decent. And I'm going to leave it there because I don't think I want the Saradomin kill. I don't think I need it, to be honest. So I feel pretty satisfied that I'm done with Saradomin God Wars at 111 KC. What is that? My RNG on this account has been something else recently. The ACB is 100 range bonus, up from 90 from a rune crossbow. But it's not about that. It's about using the dragon bolts, which have a mad range strength, which make it so much better than a rune crossbow. Oh my god, that is so good right now. Okay, so to get those dragon bolts, which make the ACB so good, I actually need to train up some fletching because they're 84 fletching, which means 79 with a boost. So my plan is from 75, just going to chuck some money into Kingdom and fletch maple logs on the side. Can we carry on the look from Saradomin God Wars? No, we can't. I still want the God D-Hide top and God D-Hide boots. Hard clue? Boo. An update on a slight change of how I'm operating. I'm moving over to defensive bursting because my magic level's already 95. I don't really need higher, and getting defense up is obviously going to be very useful. Right, well, they're definitely still here because there's a games necklace on the floor. Oh, there they are, mate. This is a big task. 400 in a row. 450 points. 513 overall. Good tasks only, baby. There it is. 10 Skatizo KC. I'm now on the high scores. I'm trying to stack and do some clues so I can get this godly hide body. First one. Ooh, enchanted top. No, I've already got iron top. Bad. I would like the legs. That would look cool, but yeah, just alkaballs. It's hit me with the double, hard, and elite, and snapdragons are perfect for restores. Yeah, that's one of the problems when I go to train prayer is there's always someone else doing it, and I can't exactly do it next to somebody because they're just going to be straight in the Twitter DMs grassing on me to see engineer. Wait, don't come round. Oh my days, someone's attacking him as well. Well, I can't log out, so let's scrap. Come on. Big bolts. Oh, sad. Okay, we're chilling. Had a little scrap for this clue scroll, and it was not worth it. Raw anglerfish. That's actually a pretty good drop, because when I cook those, I can boost above my hit points and not get direct bombed. Oh, no way. Third age mage top. What? That is incredible. What the fuck? What's going on with my luck recently? 60 mil. 38 hard clue scrolls. Got the third age top. It's like the best piece. Oh my days. It looks so good as well. And wow. What can I say? That is insane. I've been playing since 2004 and I've never had third age. This is definitely the rarest item I've ever got in my RuneScape career. It's 1 in 211,000. What is that? It is kind of unfortunate that I've already got an iron top, which is actually better, but it's only +6. So I think I'm going to use the third age on from here on out. How can I not? It just looks too good. Back to back third age. Let's go. Oh yeah, I haven't done an elite yet, so I have to get a chance of a mimic. And no. Bursting season's back, bitches. First ever great Necreal. That's why we've got the blood barrages. And I can't lie, I'm actually kind of getting violated right now. What's going on? Right, I'm not going to be dying to no Necreal, bro. That's some friendly fire shit. Look at this next level inventory management right here. Getting all the money. And here we are again, another Zook task. Let's go. Oh, fuck off. Now that I've banked all the bones for my blue dragon grind, this will be where I do my blue dragon tasks in future because it's so fast, it's just a free skip, and I just don't need prayer XP anymore.
Many men wish death on me, Lord. I don't cry no more. Don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on
Okay then. The bank's not a safe one, so that could have been interesting. Farming mission is back 85. Now I can access the high tier and no more garden pieing. No! Oh, I got ancient chaps, god d'hide chaps. I want the god d'hide top for the nerfs come in. Actually, the d'hide changes got pushed back to July, so I'm safe for now.
I'm heartbroken without your love. Heartbroken. Yes, I've had it.
Oh shit. Damn, they came to Catacombs, finally. Finally someone came. Oh my days, he's on my main right now. Fuck's sake. This is the greatest tank inventory of all time. Oh, he's got the same name. That's why I literally just got flipping baited, mate. That was a really dumb mistake to make, so glad I made it against the pure. Oh, what the hell's going on here? What the fuck? That guy just died for bank. Why are people randomly in Al Karim? What's going on? And now we switch to the budget burst spot. Who knows where this is? I am once again asking you to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support, everyone. It is about time that I went on a little wilderness expedition. I've got 400 dragon bones and I'm sick of not having piety on this account. So we're going to go and train some prayer over at the Chaos Altar. There's someone there already. Great start. This is possibly one of the riskiest things I can do. It's 38 wilderness, multi-combat, and a bunch of PKs hop around here all the time. So I think my plan is to just go as fast as possible. I don't want to log out because then people will see I'm training prayer and they'll be here within 2 minutes. Oh my god, I just panic logged over some little noob. What am I doing? Back once again with the prayer training. Let's go. It begins. Pretty sure this is just a ragger that camps the altar trying to get naked people's bones.
Rasket brand, I call it, I still roll deep. Jumpstart, give me the beat and let me prove. London City forever, you know I still cream. Ain't no stopping me ever, you best move. Live on that, I will rip it with no redemption. Worldwide, cricket, play my big move. Eastside, bro, I make the paper rise. Never been anything like the fake car guys. We got my move, west side, east time. Every section where my connection lies. Eastside, bro, I make the crowd go loose. Never had a desire for shiny suits.
There it is, Piety. Chaos Altar, I survived. It was so stressful. Always people coming in, training, prayer, PK, and whatever. We're done though. I'm happy. The background operations of Solar Mission HQ have been pumping the last few days. Kingdom and Miscellanea coming in with all the logs that I need for a special level. 79 fletching. Big one. Now we can make those Dragon Bolts for the ACB I got earlier. And here they are, the Super Bolts. Diamond Dragon and Ruby Dragon going to make Inferno, all sorts of PVM a lot easier and will really complement my ACV well. Look at me making some huge moves on the account. I am looking good for a hardcore Iron Man, let alone one that exists only in PvP. See you next time.
When button shows white, add the cart,
Yes,
right
yes,
click
yes,
the name of the
yes,
card,
yes.
open a new tab.
Nice. Yes.
So
Holy crap. I was getting so nervous that I wasn't going to get anything. I mean, I'd prefer the shield, don't get me wrong. But
It drops 3 items. 2 of them I'd be more than happy to get. And we get a fucking Ketom. I'm raging. I am fuming about that.
that is right next to an unlock we already have, the agility pyramid.
Not. But it is Draenor, which definitely connects to a lot of stuff around here. He brought it with him.
Got protection. Always use protection, guys. Before we get in today's video, let's talk about today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. I often get asked if I use a VPN, and the answer to that is of course. Everything I do and everything I've built is all centered online, and frankly, I'm not going to leave my fate up to chance. So if you want that blanket of protection between yourself and people with malicious intent, doesn't matter who these people are. It could be people trying to sell your information to companies, could be hackers trying to steal your password, could be somebody trying to DDoS you. It could even be for yourself if you want to browse privately, if you know what I'm saying. So if privacy is very important to you, ExpressVPN can be that first step that you can take to help protect yourself online.
You saw De'Aaron Fox in the NCAA tournament. You saw what he did against Lonzo.
That's the point.
You're like, why are you taking Lonzo?
Who might be the hottest player in the NBA right now? He's been one of the best players in the NBA this year in the fourth quarter.
Defensively, he is tenacious. This kid is a competitor. He doesn't care who he's going to be pitted up against.
I'm watching De'Aaron Fox in Sacramento. And I'm seeing this brother, and he's just special.
All the hard work paid off. For the time being, fulfill my dream of making it to the NBA. Now, you want to be a star. You want to be a name.
Switches onto Fox. That's a mismatch. Fox going to try and go to work.
On the day of the 2017 NBA draft, all eyes were on two promising young point guards. With the first overall pick, the 76ers chose Markelle Fultz and thought they landed themselves a young superstar. With pick number 2, the Lakers chose Lonzo Ball, a player Magic Johnson would introduce to the world by telling him, quote, "Don't break all of my records." An out there statement looking back, to say the least. Especially when you consider that a player who has already proven himself to be better than both Fultz and Ball, a player who has begun to show real star potential in this league, would be taken by the Sacramento Kings with pick number 5. Yes, just this past week, De'Aaron Fox put on a show and was named the Western Conference Player of the Week, and by the end of this video, you'll see why I fully believe De'Aaron is on his way to becoming one of the best point guards in the NBA. You'll see proof that De'Aaron Fox is actually on a historic pace when it comes to his 4th season stats, and you'll see why he has a chance of becoming a real NBA star. So what's up guys, Mike here, and yes, this is a big statement, but I have some big time stats and proof to back this statement up. Again, trust me, as we go on, you will be amazed at what De'Aaron Fox has already accomplished in his young career, and I've got to say, when it comes to the attention that guys like Trey and Ja are getting, I feel like De'Aaron is being somewhat slept on. If you agree with that statement, well then, let's end that today, and if you don't, well, I'm sure you'll enjoy listening as I hype up De'Aaron Fox with some rock solid stats. Before we continue though, I do want to mention 2 things. One, I have officially started a podcast with Flight Mike and Get Like Coop. Our podcast is called Laced Up, and the first episode is out right now. I'm going to link that first episode in the description. I'm going to pin a comment with that first episode. Please guys, go check out the first episode of Laced Up and make sure to subscribe to the channel. On his way to GSC Corzemba 20. The link to that will be in the description below. Trust me guys, you'll love Dr. Squats, they're amazing, and for now, let's continue on with the video. I'd like to mention that 23-year-old De'Aaron Fox is already on his way to joining some elite company. This season, Fox is averaging 24.8 points and 7.2 assists per game on nearly 49% shooting from the field. Very solid numbers to say the least. So solid, in fact, that when we look throughout NBA history, we find that only 3 other players have ever averaged 24 points and 7 assists per game at the age of 23. All 3 of those players are Hall of Famers, and their names are Tiny Archibald, Oscar Robertson, and LeBron James. So right away, we can see that in year 4, De'Aaron Fox is putting himself in some elite company. But what's even more impressive is that just like his career as a whole, which we're going to get into, including his early battles with Lonzo, so stick around because those games were awesome. But anyway, just like his early career as a whole, De'Aaron Fox has played dramatically better as more and more time has gone on. To show you what I mean, De'Aaron began the season by averaging a combined 21.3 points and 6.1 assists per game on 46% shooting in the 19 games he played in the months of December and January. By the time February rolled around, De'Aaron was playing at a new level as he put up 24.8 points and 9.3 assists on 47% shooting. And now, in the month of March, Fox has stepped up his scoring to an elite level, as in 13 games, he's averaging 30 points and 6.8 assists per game on 53% shooting. He is, at this point in time, starting to put it all together. He is starting to take a real leap. He is displaying his full offensive arsenal. There is a reason that De'Aaron Fox was recently named Player of the Week in the Western Conference. He has been absolutely unstoppable, but really, this growth throughout the course of the season should come as no surprise. Because as I already mentioned, De'Aaron Fox has had a career-long history of proving people wrong and making dramatic improvements to his game as time goes on. Because in recent years, we've certainly seen some very impressive rookie debuts by the game's best young guards. Guys like Ja and Trey and even Donovan Mitchell, a man who was in De'Aaron's draft class, burst onto the scene as rookies and have made a lasting impression. The same could not really be said about De'Aaron Fox because sure, Fox had a good rookie season, but with averages of 11.6 points per game and 4.4 assists per game, De'Aaron was not even named to either of the all-rookie teams, as guys like Lonzo and Dennis Smith Jr. took his place. Going further here, De'Aaron was not even originally chosen for the Rising Stars game that year. He only made the roster as a replacement for Lonzo Ball, who had a knee injury and couldn't play. So to say that De'Aaron Fox was underlooked at this point may have been an understatement. However, he did show some flashes of greatness, and his potential, combined with his work ethic and a chip on his shoulder, have certainly made him the player he has become today. And who exactly is that player? Well, as we all know, Fox is incredibly fast and is an absolute terror in transition. This athleticism has led to some jaw-dropping highlight plays, but when it comes to Fox's efficiency, that is really where we can see his growth, and we can find why he is such a great NBA player. Because right now, the thing that sets De'Aaron apart from all of the other point guards in the NBA is his finishing at the rim. As we can see on cleaningtheglass.com, Fox currently ranks first among all NBA point guards at field goal percentage at the rim with a 71% finishing percentage. That field goal percentage, 71% at the rim, is absolutely ridiculous. To give you an example of just how crazy that is, guys like Steph Curry and Ja Morant finished 63% of their shots at the rim, while someone like Trae Young, well, he only finishes 55% of his shots at the rim. De'Aaron, meanwhile, has a percentage that is up there with some of the game's best big men, and on top of his finishing at the rim, De'Aaron has also established that he is elite.
Appreciate the happy birthday wishes, brother.
This season, he currently
How you doing, my friend?
in free throw attempts per game, but the problem here slash something that is actually a good thing to look forward to in the future is that if we take a look at cleaningtheglass.com again, we can see that De'Aaron shoots 70.4% from the free throw line, which puts him in the 16th percentile among point guards. I'm sure, knowing the dedicated player he is, De'Aaron is going to grind in the offseason. He's going to get that free throw percentage up, and once that happens, he'll become an
Hey, Lucky, the big 5 or big gifted subs. I thought I said 5 because of the total. Appreciate you, Lucky. That means a lot to me, man. Anybody that doesn't already, please go follow my friend Lucky. The great dude. I just woke up, you know, I had to check in, my guy. Appreciate it, my brother.
7.2 points per game, and he has more than proven that down the stretch of big games, he is capable of carrying the Kings to a win. And as we can see,
Means a lot to me.
deeper into these numbers, we find that a huge
I'm just trying to secure at least one of these, bro.
improvement in his offensive game
I'm probably gonna give away, if I can get one of these, I'm probably gonna give away $50 or $60 worth of stuff, or like a game worth of stuff on Steam.
He is knocking down 44% of his shots, which already ranks him in the 71st percentile in the entire league. That type of improvement is certainly the result of some serious work ethic. However, before we talk about just how De'Aaron Fox rose from a player ranked behind Dennis Smith Jr. to now a man who is putting up some...
And lay back down, I'm actively in here. Sell me your 20 series, LOL. I don't have a 20 series, I got a 5700 XT. And my brother already called dibs on it.
De'Aaron Fox was a homebot. He didn't like
Otherwise, I would just hook you up on free, dog.
best player he could possibly become. And then during De'Aaron's sophomore season in high school, De'Aaron finally started to get some national attention, and so he went all in on his dream of becoming an NBA.
Because I bought this on my last birthday. It was $500. It's now going used for $1,100.
Focus on what
What I'm probably gonna end up doing is just selling this and then giving my brother like a 1660 Super or something.
It was certainly that type of mindset that propelled De'Aaron Fox to become one of the best high school basketball recruits in the country, which means now let's take a look at where the chip on De'Aaron Fox's shoulder was developed. Because if you were a college basketball fan in 2018, it was impossible to miss the Lonzo Ball show, and it was also impossible to miss the electrifying rivalry between Lonzo Ball and De'Aaron Fox. Because really, in college and early on in their NBA careers, this rivalry had it all. Trash talk from both sides, some incredible performances, and some wild words from De'Aaron Fox's dad that are absolutely insane. As headed into the Sweet 16 of the 2018 NCAA tournament, all eyes were on the Lonzo Ball-De'Aaron Fox matchup. Both players were future top 5 picks, and they were both expected to put on a show. Now, in the regular season, Lonzo's UCLA Bruins had actually taken down Fox in Kentucky in a game that saw both players produce similar stats, but also had many saying Fox had played better. De'Aaron finished with 20 points, 9 assists, and 2 turnovers, compared to Lonzo's 14 points, 7 assists, and 6 turnovers. Lakers. And then, after that game, LeVar Ball was quoted as saying he can't mess with Zoe. You can have 40 points and Lonzo can have 2 points and make the game winner, and I'm going to go with him. You had more points, but look at who won the game. These words would come back to bite LeVar horribly, as in an amazing display of fate, De'Aaron Fox would make LeVar eat those words, because in a game that very well could be looked back at as a sign of things to come, De'Aaron Fox absolutely destroyed Lonzo and the UCLA Bruins, as it was clear De'Aaron Fox was on a mission to prove to the world that he was better than Lonzo. Lonzo would finish with 10 points and 8 assists in an 11-point loss, and De'Aaron, well, he finished with 39 points and 4 assists in a game where he was simply unstoppable. And after that game, we got some incredible words from De'Aaron Fox's father, who said, quote, "My son already ate his up twice. LeVar can say what he wants to say. I just tell him to go back and watch the film. That's it." Someone please put that on a poster. Despite this win against Lonzo, though, more motivation would certainly be added to De'Aaron Fox's game in the Elite 8 of the 2018 NCAA tournament. Because in that Elite game, Kentucky trailed, fought back, and then Luke May connected on this 3 that sent Kentucky home. After this game, understandably, De'Aaron was upset, and to me, this was a true glimpse into De'Aaron Fox's character. Because even though he was playing only 1 season at Kentucky, he still was so competitive and loved his team so much that he couldn't help but hysterically cry when asked about the end of his college career. That is the type of person De'Aaron Fox is. Someone who truly leaves it all on the court. Lonzo was still taken ahead of De'Aaron Fox, which to De'Aaron was absolutely fine. Sure, De'Aaron did believe he should be the #1 pick. When asked about Markelle and Lonzo before the draft, Fox did say, quote, "I feel like I'm the best. If they're drafted above me, I'm cool with it. You have to play basketball at the end of the day." Which of course means, who cares who goes ahead of me? I'll prove I'm better than them on the court at the end of the day. Now, it was because of these 2 college performances that many of us believed we were going to watch a Lonzo Ball De'Aaron Fox rivalry for years to come. That really has not been the case, as even in the Summer League, when Lonzo Ball was named the Summer League MVP, he sat in the 1 game the Lakers played against De'Aaron Fox's Kings. Then after that, yes, Lonzo was named to the All-Rookie team over De'Aaron, but since then, De'Aaron Fox has proven that he has been on a path to stardom, while Lonzo, well, he has had a much improved season for the Pelicans this season, but compared to De'Aaron, I guess I'll go out and say it, there isn't much comparison, because De'Aaron has been undisputably better. And speaking of better, every season as a player so far, Fox has gotten better and better, and the proof of his improvements are right there in front of us. Because of his work ethic, Fox has added muscle and become a better finisher around the basket. Because of his need to become the best, De'Aaron has improved his mid-range to already make him a very dependable scorer from inside the arc. This type of improvement is no stroke of luck. For years, De'Aaron Fox has been relentless about improving his game on the court, and because of this, the sky for him is really the limit. The athleticism is there, the desire to win on the court is there, and I'm sure in the future we'll see it all. We'll see an improved 3-point shot, we'll see improved playmaking, we might even see the impossible. A De'Aaron Fox-led Kings team making some noise in the Western Conference. If anyone can make it happen, it is De'Aaron Fox, and I cannot wait to see what he does next. So thank you guys for watching.
No changes. Trevor Lawrence to the Jags.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I mean, if you're doing anything other than this, you're just looking for attention. Trevor Lawrence is big. He's got generational traits, and he's a guy you build around in the future for the long term. So I wouldn't even pick up a phone. You don't even want to be tempted if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a no-brainer. The Jaguars have never had an elite franchise quarterback. This gives them an opportunity to build a franchise around a guy who has generational talent.
I wish we could just make this official now, but no, we must wait. On to the Jets, where last week Bucky had them taking offensive tackle Penei Sewell, but Lance is in the quarterback camp for New York at 2.
Yeah, and I just think Zach Wilson's pro day is going to I thought it was okay. I didn't go as crazy over it as some others did, but I think it's good enough for him to lock in with the Jets there at the number 2 pick. Look, he's got a ton of talent. I just want to see how he performs against a much tougher schedule than he obviously played against in 2020, but the guy clearly showed huge improvements this year.
Yeah, he did show huge improvements, right? The level of competition is a concern, but the talent is there. Hopefully in that system in New York, you get a chance to see him really maximize everything that he's flashed during his time at BYU.
Zach Wilson wasn't the only one moving around during BYU's pro day. The draft order also got a workout. The Niners trading up 9 spots to 3, and Lance has them taking Lance.
Trey Lance. I mean, look, I don't know if it's going to be Trey Lance or not. This is something we can get into. I want to talk about
Amazon.
Because I think he's the right fit for San Francisco.
No chance of getting that anyways.
Should be. If you're going to move up and give up that much draft capital for a quarterback, it better be a playmaker and not a snap taker. And I think Trey Lance has playmaking potential. He's big, he's athletic, he's mobile, he can play under center, he can play out of the gun, he can run the RPO stuff for you.
God damn it.
Really not a lot he can't do. It's just that he doesn't have the big game experience and he doesn't have a lot of game experience. But I think he's the perfect fit, Bucky, for Shanahan's offense. I think it allows him to get everything out of the Mike Shanahan / Kyle Shanahan style of offense. That's why I think he would be the perfect spot here at number 3.
I shouldn't have hesitated, bro. I could have had that.
Yeah, I wonder about that.
I just saw available April 20 something. I froze, bro.
What Kyle Shanahan did with Matt Shaw. But if you go back and look at who the Super Bowls have been won within that system, John Elway and Steve Young. And when I look at Trey Lance, he certainly has that athleticism that you look for. Big-time talent, physical, does a great job of putting the ball in the paint as a runner, but also gets it done as a thrower, under center, and from the gun. I think Kyle Shanahan would have a lot of fun building an offense around Trey Lance's talents.
So, Lance, in this scenario, how do things shake out for Jimmy G? Does he start this year? Is he still a Niner?
Well, under my scenario with Trey Lance, he absolutely starts, and I think he would be a San Francisco 49er. I think they would stick to a very disciplined plan of playing the veteran who understands the offense, a guy they got to the Super Bowl with, and you let Trey Lance learn under Jimmy Garoppolo. If, however, it ends up being a guy like Mac Jones, well, that changes things because I think Mac Jones might be more ready to play in an offense, and I think that's why you potentially listen to offers for Jimmy Garoppolo if it is Mac Jones. So I think you may handle Jimmy Garoppolo a little differently depending on who their quarterback choice is.
Yeah, I think this could be a situation that's very similar to what happened in Kansas City. Alex Smith continued to play at a high level before they handed it off to Patrick Mahomes. I think Kyle Shanahan is well aware of that. I think they would like to follow that blueprint.
Jimmy G can't be happy, and maybe he'll get a little bit of the Aaron Rodgers effect from all of this. We'll see. Let's hit Kyle Shanahan's old spot, though, the Falcons, where Lance has a corner, not a quarterback going.
Yeah, you know, I just have to tell you, Pat Surtain to me is a special player. And that's a team that had 34 touchdowns given up, only 12 interceptions, only 5 of them were by cornerbacks. They got to get better on the back end, and this guy's the best corner in the draft.
He absolutely is the best corner in the draft. I love his toolbox. He does a great job of playing man and zone from utilizing a variety of different techniques. You got to take him if he's there for the Atlanta Falcons.
New defensive coordinator Dean Pease should be very pleased with that. As we reveal Lance's next 4 picks showing his selections, back-to-back receivers going 6 and 7 to the Dolphins and Lions after the Bengals address their O-line. But let's pause at the Panthers pick, a name shooting up mock drafts, Mac Jones. All the kids are calling him Big Mac, Lance. You know it. So why do you like him as the Panthers pick?
Well, okay, so look, Joe Brady had Joe Burrow before. I think when you look at Joe Burrow and you look at Mac Jones, you can find some similarities there. But I think ultimately Joe Burrow is definitely the better player when you really get into the tape. I do think Mac Jones needs talent around him to really perform at a high level. I don't think he's going to be a guy who elevates players around him. That would be my concern, obviously. But I think what the Panthers see in him and what Joe Brady, the offense coordinator, sees in him is a player that they can win with quickly because he is a very sharp, heady guy who can play inside the framework of their offense and let the offense do a lot of the heavy lifting and the design of the passing game, do a lot of heavy lifting for Mac Jones.
Yeah, here's the thing. The Carolina Panthers, I think, had an opportunity to coach Mac Jones at the Senior Bowl. So they got a chance to really get around him, understand how he processes the playbook, how he performs. And so this could be a pick. Their owner, David Tepper, is adamant about finding a franchise quarterback. Maybe in some, I won't say strange world, but maybe in Panther land, they view him as a franchise quarterback and they can surround him with the weapons he needs to be very, very successful in this league.
Okay, so time out for a second because there's a lot swirling around Mac Jones to the Niners at 3. Shanahan and John Lynch were at his pro day today. So where are you on that combo, Lance?
Well, look, I think Kyle Shanahan, I keep saying Mike, I think Kyle Shanahan's offense can work anywhere with most any quarterbacks. I think he knows exactly what he needs in a quarterback, and that's how strongly I think about his offense. I think he's really great at what he does in terms of getting the most out of quarterbacks. So I think Mac Jones could be very successful in that kind of offense. But you don't trade 3 first-round picks for Kirk Cousins. So anytime Kirk Cousins' name is mentioned, I'm like, what? Who's trading that much for Kirk Cousins? And I cover the Houston Texans. I live in Houston. I saw what happens when an offensive-minded coach gets a hold of personnel decisions. They can swing for the fences with some very aggressive moves that can set you back if you miss. And so I do have a little bit of a concern, Bucky, on this one about is that what Kyle Shanahan's doing here if it's Mac Jones?
Yeah, I got tremendous concerns if Kyle Shanahan says that Mac Jones is the transcendent player that you got to take in the top 5, that you have to trade away to get. I understand he's had success being able to get it done with the likes of Matt Ryan and Kirk Cousins and others. But here's the thing. We just saw in this division, Sean McVay traded away Jared Goff because he felt like he hit the ceiling. We're seeing his own frustration with Jimmy Garoppolo because he can't get over the hump with those guys. I would contend that both of those players are more talented than Mac Jones. So if he traded up to kind of run it back with a similar type player, to me, it doesn't make sense. You make this move because you want a Pat Mahomes type and Aaron Rodgers type. I don't believe Mac Jones is that type of player.
Starting with the next quarterback. And Drew Lock, I'm sorry. Lance, it's Justin Fields heading to the Broncos with that 9th pick.
Well, I think where there's smoke, there's fire. There's been a lot of discussion about Denver potentially being interested in another quarterback. And look, I mean, Justin Fields is a guy who has played in a lot of high leverage games. I really love the game that he played against Clemson because not only did he step up after, coming off of some down performances in the season, but he also played extremely well in the first half, got injured, came football moxie and toughness there. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like Justin Fields in this spot. We saw the Arizona Cardinals get away from Josh Rosen very, very quickly because they just felt like he wasn't the guy. And if Denver doesn't think Drew Lock is the guy, then why not go with the quarterback that you do think is a guy? And if that's what they feel like, feel about Justin Fields, I don't think they'll hesitate to pull the trigger at number 9 with Fields if he's there.
No, I think it would be smart for the Denver Broncos to make this pick if Justin Fields is there. Not only is his talent worthy of being a top 10 pick, I believe he's a special player. Moreover, it does enable the Denver Broncos to reset the clock with the rookie quarterback. That enables them to re-sign their stars. It also allows them to build a more competitive team around the quarterback. And because the quarterback room is not very expensive when it comes to Drew Lock's salary and Justin Fields' salary, I think this creates the kind of competition that will ultimately allow them to have the best quarterback going forward. Either Drew Lock steps up or Justin Fields becomes the QB1. I like this pick.
So let's talk about that competition then, Lance. Who would you rather, before seeing them on the field in that competition, Lock or Fields?
Well, I'd go off of what I saw on tape when both guys came out. I mean, I had a I had a second-round grad on Locke. I mean, Locke has a ton of talent and a ton of ability, but I'm seeing some of the same things in the pros I saw in college. And I just think Fields is better prepared to be a more consistent performer on Sunday, game in and game out. And that's what it's about in the NFL. Give me consistency.
Yeah, you talk about a consistent player. I believe Fields is a much better player coming out of college than Drew Lock was. And even though Drew Lock has shown promise at times during his 2 years at Denver, I think you're getting an upgraded position with Justin Fields. He's talented, tremendous arm talent. He's athletic. He gives you a lot more at the position. I think you have to take Fields over Lock in the competition.
One of these years, Denver will find a quarterback. I believe it's going to happen. Let's move on to the 10th pick here. And Lance, you have the Cowboys investing in the offensive line.
Well, I think it's smart. And when you go back to the Cowboys, you know, their growth happened when they drafted Zach Martin. We thought they might go Johnny
Hello, Kratos. What's wrong? You seem confused, Kratos. Having trouble remembering our special time together?
Hey guys, what's happening? Niat here with Film Comics Explained, and today we'll be taking a look at Kratos, the Ghost of Sparta, as featured in the incredible God of War game series, exploring his early life and journey to becoming the God of War. One of the best things about this game, other than the incredible story and gameplay, was that it made the Greek pantheon and Norse mythology more accessible to younger audiences, though many creative changes were made to fit the context of the game. Born in the Greek city of Sparta, Kratos was essentially the demigod son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Callisto, though he would remain unaware of this fact for most of his life. Like all Spartan youth, Kratos was monitored and trained for combat by Spartan soldiers. Often seen training with his younger brother Deimos, the young Kratos showed himself to be an unrelenting and aggressive fighter that was difficult to restrain. And around this time, Zeus began to hear prophecies foretelling his demise at the hands of one of his sons, who was described as a marked warrior. Hoping to circumvent the cycle of patricide that plagued the Greek pantheon, Zeus sent Ares and Athena to hunt down and dispose of the boy that would one day rise up against him. And after noticing the birthmark of Deimos, Ares invaded Sparta and took the child to Thanatos, the god of death. And in case you were wondering, yes, the character Thanos in the MCU was actually based off Thanatos, who is the Greek primordial god of death. During the struggle, Kratos attempted to save his brother, but was knocked down by Ares, and the loss of Deimos left the Spartan broken, leading him to vow never to falter again. In honor of his brother, Kratos then tattooed the exact mark of Deimos onto himself, which was the very mark that Zeus was told to be wary of. And like most self-fulfilling prophecies, Zeus's attempt to avoid his fate fast-tracked his own demise. It should also be noted that Deimos was not actually dead, but was merely imprisoned by Thanatos. As Kratos came of age, he became a respected member of the Spartan army, eventually going on to lead as its captain, whilst also marrying a woman named Lysandra and fathering a daughter, both of which functioned as his backbone and strength. Throughout the games, Kratos was portrayed as an anti-hero, often performing questionable actions to satiate the desires of those that he worked for, whilst also embarking on several adventures in attempts to avert disaster or change his fate. As a general, the Spartan had won his battles through brutal but effective tactics, and though he was a formidable fighter and a great leader, it was very clear early on that he had an unquenchable thirst for power. This fed into his pride, which in turn fueled his hunger, and despite the pleas of his wife Lysandra, Kratos vowed to continue his bloody conquests until the glory of Sparta was known throughout the world, which was an eloquent way of saying that he would never stop. The general and his armies finally met their match when they encountered the merciless barbarian tribes of the east, led by Kratos' old enemy, Ulrich, who sought vengeance for the death of his father. Outnumbered and overpowered, Kratos called out to Ares, the god of war, pledging his allegiance in exchange for victory. Seeing potential in the ruthless Spartan, Ares accepted the offer and proceeded to kill all the barbarians, prior to gifting Kratos the Blades of Chaos in return for his unquestionable loyalty, which were a pair of chain blades that were burnt into the flesh of Kratos to remind him of his oath. For a time, Kratos served under Ares, raiding villages, slaughtering innocents, and spreading chaos in his name. And under the god of war's influence, Kratos became utterly ruthless and gradually lost any semblance of the humanity he once had. During one of these merciless raids on a village filled with Athena's followers, Ares secretly transported Lysandra and his daughter to a nearby temple. Ignoring the village oracle's warnings, Kratos entered the temple and slaughtered everybody inside in a blind fit of rage, including his wife and child, whom he believed were still in Sparta. Ares then justified this as a means of severing Kratos' remaining attachments to the world of mortals, thereby molding him into a perfect warrior. Stricken with both horror and grief at what he had done, Kratos left the bodies of his family to be burnt within the temple, ultimately renouncing his allegiance to the god of war. The oracle then cursed Kratos, forcing him to forever wear the ashes of his dead family on his skin, and from that day forward, Kratos became known as the Ghost of Sparta, with his skin now pale as the moon from the ashes that coated him.
My wife, my child, how? They were left in Sparta.
You are becoming all I'd hoped you'd be, Kratos. Now, with your wife and child dead, nothing will hold you back.
But as the flames consumed the temple, Kratos realized his true enemy was the god who once saved his life. The same god who had now taken everything from him.
Haunted by his past foul deeds and the nightmares they bore him, Kratos began serving the goddess Athena, who promised to relieve him of his visions if he helped her stop her brother Ares from destroying Athens, a task that Kratos eagerly accepted. After realizing that the only way to kill a god was to open Pandora's box and harness its power, the Spartan was moments away from opening it before he was impaled by a stake that had been thrown by Ares from across Greece, which pinned and killed him, sending Kratos down to the underworld. Kratos, being stubborn and unrelenting, refused to accept his own death and fought his way out of the underworld, eventually opening Pandora's box and using its power to kill Ares, saving Athens in the process. And though Kratos attempted to end his life, unable to deal with the nightmares of his victims, Athena intervened and transported him to Mount Olympus, and as a reward for his service to the gods, he was given a seat as the new god of war.
Kratos, the ghost of Sparta, had taken his place amongst the Olympians as the god of war. The bloodshed, the relentless battles, had finally brought him here. Ares was dead, and though Olympus beckoned, visions of his mortal existence still haunted him.
As a demigod, Kratos possessed incredible physical prowess, beyond that of any mortal or beast, and used his abilities to defeat monsters, magical beings, titans, and even the gods themselves. After Kratos killed Ares and was made the new god of war, his powers were increased even further, giving him the ability to grow to monstrous heights, enabling him to become a fiery comet which would lay waste to all below him, as well as granting him all the powers of the god of war. Superhuman strength. Kratos possesses incredible superhuman strength, which seems to fluctuate depending on the situation. I mean, he can easily subdue and rip apart many large and powerful beasts, and creatures such as undead legionnaires, infected humans, monsters, and magical beings using only his bare hands. In his battle against Hercules, who is considered to be unrivaled in terms of sheer strength, Kratos proved capable of stopping his charges, forcing him backwards, and enduring his powerful bear hugs without any ill effects, eventually breaking free and defeating him in the process. In addition to his vast physical strength, Kratos also possessed great levels of superhuman agility, stamina, durability, endurance, reflexes, and speed. Durability. Throughout the course of the games, he's seen falling from great heights and walking away unharmed, getting crushed, stabbed, beaten, blasted, and burnt by various enemies and traps, as well as surviving extreme environments such as Hell, the Norse realm of the dead, which was said to be so cold that not even Odin himself could survive there for long. Speed. Kratos' speed allows him to keep up with opponents who possess vast amounts of speed, such as Chiron, Hermes, and Zeus, who had the speed of lightning. Regeneration. He's also able to regenerate from most wounds at a fast rate, though it should be noted that he did not regenerate from the scar in his stomach caused by the Blade of Olympus, and the scar over his right eye caused by Ares. Kratos also possessed powerful resistance to most forms of attack and magic like time manipulation and illusions that would easily kill most humans or magical beings. Also, unlike most people who are unfortunate enough to meet Hades in the underworld after dying, whenever Kratos was killed, he would always find a way to fight his way out, cheating death on numerous occasions. Intelligence. Although often defined by his brute strength, he was a master tactician who was both cunning and knowledgeable, having managed to solve many puzzles throughout his journeys that allowed him to narrowly escape death in the process. Kratos was also wise enough to use the environment against his enemies, and was even able to get the upper hand on Zeus during their second encounter, by feigning defeat and causing Zeus to lower his guard enough for Kratos to effectively strike and nearly kill him. Before serving Ares, Kratos' main weapon was his sword. This eventually changed to the Blades of Chaos, which was gifted to him as a sign of his servitude. These were essentially two falcon-like blades on long chains, permanently fused and seared onto the skin of Kratos. Once he'd killed Ares, Athena had replaced them with a nearly identical pair of blades called the Blades of Athena, which were once again replaced in God of War 3 with the very similar Blades of Exile. Most of his weapons are eventually destroyed following his fight with Zeus, and when he found himself in the Nordic realm, all that remained were the Blades of Chaos, which Kratos kept under his cabin, enabling him to move on, whilst also acting as a reminder of the atrocities that he had once committed. Throughout most of the series, Kratos is incredibly cruel, reckless, and destructive, willing to kill anyone who got in his way. He is also shown to be incapable of accepting full responsibility for his actions, usually blaming the gods, especially Zeus and Ares, for his suffering, while ignoring or denying his own part in it. In spite of his cruel acts, Kratos is shown to care deeply for his wife and daughter, with the memories of their deaths driving him to the point of madness. In fact, the one and only time Kratos was shown to be happy was when he briefly reunited with his daughter in Chains of Olympus. He also cared for his younger brother Deimos and his mother Callisto, with their deaths further contributing to his growing hatred for the gods of Olympus.
Calliope!
Father?
My child.
Why did you go?
I am here now, child. And I will not leave you again.
After destroying Olympus, remarrying, and siring another child named Atreus, Kratos became more of a stoic character, only bursting out in anger when antagonized or threatened. He also finally accepted full responsibility for his actions in Greece, often exhibiting extreme sadness and regret, and at times even falling into a state of depression when confronted about his past behavior. It's his ability to eventually accept his past mistakes and move on that I think makes Kratos one of the most endearing playable characters in a continued game series. Well, that's all for today, folks. Thanks to all of you guys who requested we take a look at the mighty Kratos, as featured in the awesome God of War game series.
What's up, fellas? In the second video of the day, we're going to be talking about some teams in the NBA that might regret not having made a move at the deadline this season. A lot of teams made moves, and there are teams on this list that did make moves, but they could maybe regret either not making different ones or the ones that they made or not making additional moves. But really quickly before we get started, I want to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Manscaped. I told you guys about their products before, and I've been using them for over a year now, and there's truly no better all-in-one men's grooming solution than the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer, part of the performance package from Manscaped, is a rechargeable, cordless, water-resistant trimmer that's truly a game changer for male hygiene, and it goes to a good cause as well, as every purchase at manscaped.com goes towards contributions to the Testicular Cancer Society. Together, TCS and Manscaped are committed to raising awareness for the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35 and giving support for fighters, survivors, and families impacted by testicular cancer. So if you're looking for a men's grooming solution and you want to support a good cause, you can go to manscaped.com and type in my code SPORTING20 at checkout for 20% off, as well as free international shipping. Again, that's code SPORTING20 at manscaped.com. And thank you again to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. With those things said, let's go through the list. First up, and the team that is probably, in my opinion, the most interesting team in the Western Conference right now, in terms of how good are they, is the Phoenix Suns. Maybe some people expect me to say the Utah Jazz. I think it's been established that the Jazz are worst case like a good team. They've been a good team for a couple of seasons. What their ceiling is, we don't really know. But I think there's a lot more uncertainty with this Suns team because we just don't have a history of this franchise doing a lot of positive things over the last 5 or 6 years. Now, it's different when Chris Paul is there. It's different when Devin Booker has good players around him. And they clearly tapped into something in the bubble last year that's translated to this year, and it's related to the Chris Paul transaction, right? However, I think that there is a scenario where we get to the second round of the postseason, right, and the Suns lose in 7 games. Or they get to the conference finals and we're more competitive than people thought that they would be because of just how the bracket broke and maybe the Lakers, have some injury issues, whatever. And we're thinking, man, they needed one more piece. They needed a backup plan, assuming Ayton can't figure it out defensively and they need someone else to go out there and guard at the 5. They needed just one more shooter, one more guy that could defend, one more guy that could create points. I think that's a possibility. And if you're a Suns team and you're looking at this and you've got this year and next year with Chris Paul, and after that it's very up in the air, you could make the argument that their window to make a move was this deadline. And yes, they've already given up picks in the future to get Paul, and some of their assets are a little bit limited, but they've got some guys that can interest other teams. Maybe Jalen Smith would have been the move, and maybe you could make the argument that they screwed up that pick. Maybe that guy was the one that they were supposed to add. But I think you could make the argument that Phoenix missed out on an opportunity here to make a bigger move. It could come back to haunt them. Next up, the Denver Nuggets, a team that made one of the more significant moves at the deadline. They brought in Aaron Gordon, but I talked about this in the Gordon trade video. I talked about this in the live stream at the time that it happened. What their plan is in the backcourt defensively concerns me. If their plan is for their closing and starting unit in the postseason to include Jamal Murray and Will Barton in the backcourt, that's a problem to me. I understand that Aaron Gordon can make a difference defensively and he can help you guard guys in the front court and on the wing, but you're telling me that like Will Barton is a guy that's supposed to be engaged and guard defensively in the postseason down the stretch against some of the better guards in the West, right? Because like Aaron Gordon can't guard everybody. Maybe you're going to throw MPJ out there and you're going to hope that's a guy that can step up defensively, but you can throw him in there too. Murray, Barton, MPJ. One of them, assuming that's your closing lineup, is going to have to guard somebody that's good. And before that wasn't that much of an issue because you had Gary Harris, but Harris being a part of the Gordon deal makes me nervous about their defensive ability in the postseason because offensively they've got it. They've got it figured out. Jokic is the front runner for the MVP right now, in my opinion, and Jamal Murray's been coming on lately as well. So the issue is going to be defensively, and I think they tried to, remedy that by bringing in Gordon to replace the Grant spot. The problem was they had to give up Gary Harris to do that. Not that Harris has been fantastic, not that he has not been a liability at times offensively, but who are you relying on defensively in the backcourt just makes me nervous. And I would imagine there are Nuggets fans watching this video thinking, yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about that as well. We've had the Will Barton experience, and it's never been great defensively. That's all I'm saying. Next up, Boston. They got pretty good value, at the deadline when it comes to bringing in someone like Evan Fournier, who's exactly what they need. They needed another creator. They needed another guy that they could put out there and say, this guy's going to do stuff when he's on the court. He's not just going to be out there and play 25 minutes and not score or go for 2 from the field. Like Fournier is going to be able to create some shots a little bit, make some shots off the ball. His debut was obviously not great, but I think it got good value for giving up, for this season, at least basically nothing, 2 second-round picks in the future. Giving up Tice and stuff like that had to do with money and, things got a little bit weird with that. And I think they actively made their team worse by dumping Tice and getting back like Mo Wagner. But, they want to get on the luxury tax, whatever, that makes sense. However, what if we get to the postseason and like, you know what, we could have had a shot at Vucevic, we could have had a shot at Aaron Gordon, but we're going to end up, potentially losing in the first round or getting swept in the second round because we did not make a move. Now, maybe you could make the argument that, well, then if that was the case and they were ever that bad, then they never should have made the move in the first place and given up things in the future. I think that's possible, but there's still plenty of talent on this Boston roster. This is a team that has multiple guys that have been to multiple Eastern Conference finals. Like, they know what it takes to succeed in the postseason, And if you want to tell me that they make the conference finals, I won't be shocked. I won't be surprised at all if we see, you know, a Philly-Boston or a Boston-Brooklyn conference finals. They have that level of talent, and they could have even added.
So here we are after putting out these rankings over the last week or so. We've finally made it to the final position left to cover, being the center position. Every year I rank the top 10 players at each position twice, once around the midway point of the season, which is where we're at now, and once when the season concludes. And the reason I do this is because I feel as though I always take the new information and context into consideration for this kind of discussion, and today we will be ranking the centers. Before we get started though, I wanted to thank FanDuel for sponsoring this video. Obviously, we're all sports fans here because you wouldn't be watching this video if you weren't. I can only assume we're all basketball fans here, but whether you follow the NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL, along with so many other professional sports leagues to choose from, FanDuel has you covered. There is always an option to play for any level of player on FanDuel Fantasy Sports, and how it works is quite simple. First, you choose a contest out of the hundreds that are available every day. Next, you draft your team without going over the provided salary cap. And finally, you can watch as the games play out in real time that can lead to you earning real cash. The best part is that if you're a complete beginner, there are specific contests
3060, bro.
to help you learn the ropes.
That scared
while
the
still
shit
being
out of me.
able to compete for real cash while you do it. Now, especially for all of the NBA fans specifically, there is a special offer going on right now where you can receive a voucher to enter an NBA contest completely free and win up to $25,000 in prizes. If any of this interests you in any way, be sure to use my custom FanDuel sign-up link that you can find both in the description of the video.
I'll fucking buy a 3090. I'll fucking do it.
To join today.
I just need something.
Once again, thank you to FanDuel, and with that being said, let's get into the video. Before we get into the top 10, we'll be going through the honorable mentions that just missed the cut, and the players in this category are Jusuf Nurkic, Andre Drummond, DeAndre Jordan, Jarrett Allen, and Jonas Valanciunas. We won't spend too much time on the honorable mentions, but obviously the one that will catch everyone's eye is Andre Drummond, who just got bought out and joined the Los Angeles Lakers. Throughout Drummond's entire career, he's been someone who has put up huge numbers in the box score, specifically when rebounding the ball, but when you actually pay close attention to his production and play on the court, it's always seemed to be a bit hollow. Going to the Lakers is going to be a big moment for him in his career, because he could either prove to be their missing piece, or things could go sour, so we'll just have to wait and see. Now, let's get into the top 10. Starting at number 10 on this list, we have Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. Turner's one of the best defenders in the league right now, and his work as a rim protector is one of the few consistently good things throughout the Pacers' rocky season this year. He's leading the league in blocks per game this year, swatting 3.5 shots per game. He does very well staying disciplined inside, and offensively, he operates as a versatile floor-spacing big man who knocks down threes at a decent clip. He'll likely be one of the finalists for the Defensive Player of the Year award as long as the Pacers can finish in the standings. That ends up having them in the playoffs, and for that, he squeaks into the top 10 for me. Next up at number 9, we have Clint Capella of the Atlanta Hawks. In his first season with the Hawks, he's been tremendous on the inside for a team playing some of its best basketball as of late. Capella's the leading rebounder this year, grabbing 14 rebounds per game, but he also scores about 15 points per game while shooting a nice 59% from the field, and he's brought an imposing presence on defense, protecting the rim as the Hawks desperately needed after struggling mightily on that end over the last few years. He works well with Trae Young in the pick and roll, he doesn't try to do more than what he's capable of, and he's just been a really good fit on this young up-and-coming team. Up next at number 8, we have Kristaps Porzingis of the Dallas Mavericks. Porzingis was brought to Dallas to be the right-hand man to Luka Doncic, and together their offensive firepower was supposed to form one of the most explosive duos in the league. Well, Luka Doncic has held up his end of the bargain, but Porzingis has been much more of a mixed bag out on the floor. The injury he suffered 2 years ago has definitely played a part in this, and he still missed time because of injuries this year as well. But as time has gone on, he still is a secondary scoring option that is ideal for the situation the Mavericks are in, and he has unlimited range at 7'3", so there are definitely plenty of good things that come with him too. He gives you 20 points and about 9 rebounds per game this year, which is pretty solid, but he will need to improve defensively and with his shot selection to regain his previous pre-injury form. Next up at number 7, we have Christian Wood of the Houston Rockets. Christian Wood was brought in as a big signing for the Rockets in the offseason, and to start the year off, he proved why he was ready for a bigger role after being a highly sought-after free agent. On the year, he's putting up about 22 points and 10 rebounds per game. He's a highly efficient scorer, both inside and out. He creates a ton of mismatches because of his strength as a ball handler at his size, and his impact on the team has become blatantly clear. Before he got injured this season, the Rockets had a winning record of 11 wins and 10 losses. Then, once he went down and started missing time, the Rockets began one of the longest losing streaks we've seen in a while. He's worked incredibly hard to get to where he is now, and he deserves all the praise for the work that he's put in. Up next at number 6, we have Nikola Vucevic of the Chicago Bulls. Vuce was one of the best players traded at the trade deadline this year, and his addition should solidify the Bulls as legitimate playoff contenders in a pretty tight race in the middle of the Eastern Conference. Vucevic has always fallen into the category of a highly productive all-star caliber player who oftentimes felt underrated because of his lack of attention that he got with the teams he was on. But in Chicago, he's in a situation playing with Zach LaVine where they could potentially make some real noise. His production of
God damn it.
12 rebounds and 4 assists per game is incredible.
Fucking 30-60. No one wants a 30-60.
Inside and out, he can pound it inside and dominate from the post, and his passing for a big man makes life easy for those around him. Next up at number 5, we have Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat. Bam and the Heat have had a pretty wild up and down season so far, as the Heat have arguably been affected by injuries and COVID as much as any team in the league, but Bam's been their rock holding things down throughout it all. He's truly one of the best defensive talents in the league, and for a big man, he not only protects the rim at a high level, but he's also one of the few players at his size capable of confidently switching out onto the perimeter and holding his own against smaller, quicker players as well. He's putting up about 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. He works well as a playmaker in the high post, his face-up game is a strong point in his game, and he just keeps getting better and better across the board year after year. Next up at number 4, we have Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz. Gobert's a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year winner who brings value and impact on that end of the floor at a level matched by very few, if any. The Jazz are so much better with him on the court, and his presence inside is key to their defense being ranked in the top 5 this season. Advanced metrics all show how impactful he is to the Jazz this year and their success. The numbers for the team with him on the court versus with him off the court back it up as well, and of course, he's one of the favorites this year to win the Defensive Player of the Year award yet again. Up next at number 3, we have Karl Anthony Towns of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Towns is one of the most talented players in the league, trapped in an unfortunate situation in Minnesota. Year after year, the Wolves find themselves at the bottom of the standings, and while you could reasonably look at Towns for not leading them to better success, you just can't ignore how poorly the team has been built for all this time. He's one of the most skilled big men in the whole league, and his knockdown sharpshooting for a big man, being a 40% shooter from 3 while taking a high volume of attempts, is crazy impressive. He's as good as a player can be at the position without breaking into the absolute top tier, ranking just below the 2 players who are in the league of their own that we're about to discuss. Next up at number 2, we have Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. The top 2 at this position is as tight as humanly possible, and the fact that they're both leading MVP candidates this season is absolutely wild. Jokic is a one-man elite offense that scores and creates for others at a truly elite level, and the fact that he's as good of a passer as he is at the center position has never been seen before. There really isn't anything negative to say about him, besides the fact that at times he can struggle defending in space and protecting the rim, but other than that, you won't find a more productive player. And finally, at number 1 on this list, we have Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid is having the best season of his career by far this year, and throughout pretty much the entire season, he was the leading MVP candidate because of how he was leading the number 1 seed Sixers. Unfortunately, he's missed a few weeks because of an injury, but he will be returning to the court soon to get back to continuing his MVP campaign. He's an unstoppable force in the post on offense, his face-up game and perimeter shooting are much improved, and defensively, he has been a beast protecting the rim. Ultimately, the defensive edge is what I gave over him to give him the number 1 spot over Jokic, and if he returns to form when he gets back on the court, he'll regain his status in the MVP race. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and go check out and download FanDuel using the link in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. We are officially past the halfway point in the positional rankings that we're doing here on this channel this week, and for this I post player rankings once in the middle of the season, which is about where we are now, and once when the season concludes, and I feel like it's important to do this in order to continually take all of the new information and context available to us into consideration for things like this. I started things off with the point guard rankings, then I moved on to the shooting guards, then yesterday with the small forwards, so today we'll be going through the power forwards, which is a position with a good balance of top tier talent and rising younger talent as well. Before we start though, it turns out about 65% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting with the honorable mentions at the power forward position that just missed the cut for the top 10, we have Aaron Gordon, Robert Covington, Draymond Green, and PJ Washington. Aaron Gordon found himself in the news yesterday as the trade deadline came and went, and the Magic traded him over to Denver to give him a fresh start on a contending team. Gordon's been a player on the fringe of being a really good player at this position for a while now, but has just never been able to take that leap. He's a good player, a versatile defender, but offensively his game hasn't developed quite as was hoped. But playing alongside Nikola Jokic now, and all of that playmaking that he brings, it should make his life easier on that end for sure. As for the others, Washington is an underrated young guy playing well for a fun Hornets team. Draymond Green is always an impactful player, even when his stats aren't that impressive on paper, and Covington's been a rock on defense for years now. And now, with that being said, let's get into the top 10. Starting at number 10 on this list, we have Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren was one of the toughest players to rank here because he's been injured and hasn't played yet this year, but in the first 2 seasons of his career, he showed tremendous growth and has all of the makings of an ideal modern-day big man who excels on the defensive end, both protecting the rim and being versatile enough to hold his own out on the perimeter, while offensively he stretches the floor as a knockdown three-point shooter who also finishes well inside. Obviously, he's a wild card at the moment though, because he has the talent to be higher on this list, but the injury he's recovering from could hold him back a little bit, ultimately making it a bit of a waiting game for him at the moment. Next up at number 9, we have John Collins of the Atlanta Hawks. Collins is an explosive player at the position who finishes with power around the rim, works very well in the pick and roll, is an underrated shot creator for himself off the dribble, and has continually improved his outside shooting to operate as a pick and pop player and in spot-up scenarios as well. He's putting up about 18 points and 8 rebounds per game this season, while shooting 54% from the field and 37% from 3. And even though those numbers are down from what he's done the last 2 seasons, it's more so because of how he's playing on a team now with a winning focus, and he's still playing a very efficient and productive game. He and Trae Young have formed a very formidable two-man duo for the Hawks, and especially lately, the team has been rolling with those two leading the way. Up next at number 8, we have Jeremy Grant of the Detroit Pistons. Grant is one of the fastest risers up this list, having gone from a valuable role player to a legitimate star-caliber player and number 1 option. Grant's firmly in the most improved player race this season because of how well he's handled this new role that he finds himself in on the Pistons, and his production of 23 points and 5 rebounds per game speaks on that. Even going back to the very beginning of his career, he has come a long way, as his offensive game was such a project at the start, with a lot of work needed to be done to improve, and to give him full credit for it, he has absolutely put that work in to become what he is today. Next at number 7, we have Pascal Siakam of the Toronto Raptors. After 2 really strong years filled with improvement and progress, this year Siakam has seemingly come back down to earth a bit, and that, amongst many other things, has resulted in a disappointing season for the Raptors as a whole. He's a 20-point scorer this year, but his offensive game can be a bit predictable at times, and as defenses have started to pick up on his tendencies on that end, they've managed to slow him down more effectively than a year ago, which is demonstrated by his drop in overall scoring and his efficiency also dropping a little bit as well. He's shooting worse from both the field and from 3 this year, and even though he's still a very good player, he might not be the ideal number 1 option that the Raptors were hoping he would be. Next at number 6, we have Domantas Sabonis of the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have Sabonis somewhat playing out of position at times because he's probably best suited as a center, but even as a power forward, he has been a highly effective player who uses his brute force to overwhelm his opponents. His strength in the post allows him to be one of the most effective players down around the rim. He has excellent touch, and he's a very skillful player not only as a scorer, but also as one of the best passing big men in the league right now. The only thing that worries me is that the Pacers, at least statistically, have been a little bit better with him off the court than they have with him on the court in terms of outscoring their opponents and point differential. However, those statistics can be misleading at times and don't necessarily mean he's a negative player by any stretch. Next up at number 5, we have Tobias Harris of the Philadelphia 76ers. Harris was viewed as arguably one of the worst assets in the league after last season because of his full max contract and his disappointing season, but he's come back with a vengeance this year, looking to prove everybody wrong, and he's been nothing short of sensational for the top-seeded 76ers this year. Offensively, he looks more confident than ever. He's been so efficient scoring the ball, and he's on the brink of joining the rare 50-40-90 club, meaning he shoots over 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line. And defensively, he's been locked in, playing better than he ever has on that end of the floor. He's come through time after time in the clutch for the team. He's holding down the ship for the team while Embiid is out injured, and he's really had a great turnaround year. Next up at number 4, we have Julius Randle of the New York Knicks. Randle, somewhat like Harris, has done a complete 180 regarding how he's viewed around the league this year. Last season, there was real reason to view him as a negative asset because of the mindset he had out on the court at times, combined with the tunnel vision that he would get with the ball in his hands that made him a bit of a black hole. While now, he's playing good team basketball, and not only is he making his own play better, but he's elevating the play of everybody around him, helping the Knicks make a playoff push. He's putting up about 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists per game right now, doing a bit of everything for the team. And most impressive of all is the fact that he's gone from one of the worst three-point shooters in the league to a 42% shooter from deep, and now he's a legitimate all-star caliber talent. Up next at number 3, we have Zion Williamson of the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion came into the league with otherworldly hype 2 years ago, and despite the fact that he's playing phenomenally this year, that hype has for some reason died down a bit. Despite that hype dying down though, Zion's been playing at a legitimate all-star level and is progressing very nicely into the top tier of players at this position. He's putting up about 26 points and 7 rebounds per game so far this year, but he's also shooting a whopping 62% from the field, and his combination of brute strength and soft touch along with his agility and mobility around the rim make him a bully in the paint that very few can successfully slow down. Next up at number 2 now, we have Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers. Davis marks the separation into the top superstar tier of players at this position, and his dominant two-way play is far ahead of the rest of the names that we've discussed at this point. He was vital to the Lakers' title run last year alongside LeBron James, but this year, unfortunately, he's been plagued by injuries and has missed a good amount of time. When healthy though, he's an all-defense caliber player, an incredibly versatile and impactful offensive player both inside and out, and he's a true force to be reckoned with. And finally, the number 1 spot on this list goes to Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is the 2-time defending winner of the MVP award along with the reigning Defensive Player of the Year winner as well, for good reason. His combination of quickness and strength make him virtually unguardable at times when he gets a full head of steam going to the basket, and his production of 28 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 assists per game on average is once again insane to be putting up. His MVP buzz has died down a little bit this year because of voter fatigue, but he'll still be in the running of course, because once again, he's having that caliber of season. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank these players. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
CMOS button, same memory topology as what you get on the Tai Chi, which does mean that the Aorus Pro V2 is again going to be a better memory overclocker than the Creator. And VRM wise, this is actually the strongest of the VRMs here, so this is a better VRM than what you get on some of the AGSA, and we'll have stable BIOSes. But for now, yeah, bug, but I'm sure that's going to show up. Hey guys, BuildZoid here from the Actually Hardcore Overclocking channel, and today we are going to be doing the AM4 motherboard roundup for the end of 2020. We will be covering ATX, MATX, and ITX boards, also in that order. And before we get into it, I'd like to point out that I'm not factoring in the current state of the BIOSes for the motherboards in the list, because the BIOSes right now are a bit of a mess, because new CPU launched, AMD is messing around with the AGSA, which basically means AMD is making a mess of the AGSA.
Grind time, here we go. Got an hour and a half before.
So there are bugs like USB port issues, memory.
It's guaranteed that neither are dropping.
Includes XMP issues. Infinity Fabric stability issues. I'm surprised I've not yet heard about a sleep bug, but I'm sure that's going to show up eventually. So just generally, the
I don't want to pay a scalper, but it's getting to that point, bro.
Basically, all motherboard vendors are affected to some extent because this is...
I missed out on a fucking Amazon 3080 because I wasn't logged into Amazon. I had a chance. I had it in my cart,
and it's RTX 30 series
but
Vector
I wasn't logged in.
EK Quantum Vector blocks include options for Founders Edition 3080 and 3090 cooling, Asus TUF and Strix 3080 blocks, EVGA XC3 and FTW3 blocks, and more. EK has blackout, acrylic, and RGB blocks available, including new special edition blocks with minimalistic aesthetics. Learn more at the link in the description below.
At this
So I'm
point,
not
yeah.
factoring in the current state of the BIOSes
But the only
because
downside
hopefully
about
in,
that
like, a week, maybe
is,
2, worst case scenario, a couple months, AMD will finally,
if
you know,
I'm
stop
probably gonna give
messing
Michael the
up
second
the
PC.
AGSA and
Only
all the
downside
stable
about that is
BIOSes,
there's even a
but
waiting time.
for now,
They're even bought out.
yeah, they're not exactly finished. The other thing I'm not factoring in is any sales that are going on for the motherboards. The list is mostly going by MSRP because there was quite a few boards that I saw that were on very deep discounts for like 24 hours, which, you know, the video would lose its relevance very, very quickly if I was like considering, you know, motherboards that are currently on sale. So, yeah, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Starting off with what I consider the baseline AM4 motherboard, just in general right now, and that's the MSI B550A-A Pro. The reason why I consider this the baseline motherboard is because it basically does a little bit of everything. You've got troubleshooting LEDs, you've got an internal Type-C connector, you've got 6 SATA ports, 2 M.2 slots, the second one is PCIe 3.0, the first one is 4.0. You get your, you know, 16x 4.0 PCIe slot from the CPU, and then you've got the second PCIe 4x slot from the chipset that runs at 3.0. We've got a VRM fully capable of PBOing a 5950X, and for the rear I/O, you've got BIOS flashback functionality, so you can update the motherboard BIOS without having a compatible CPU. You've got, you know, a decent number of USB ports, 1 gig Realtek LAN. You've got a, you know, Type-C port in the rear I/O as well. So basically, this does everything a motherboard should do. The only real, like, well, it's not even a real complaint, because at this price point, you just don't have motherboards that do this better. But the only potential issue you might run into with this motherboard is that it does use a 4-layer PCB. And so when it comes to memory overclocking, it's just not as good as some of the more expensive boards. And if you're just running 2 memory sticks, this won't really affect you at all. If you're running 4 memory sticks, then you might find that instead of being able to take your 4 memory sticks all the way up to like 4,000, DDR4 4000 speeds, you'll be stuck in sort of the 3600 range. Well,
They want
you'll be
$3,000
stuck
for
at
3080.
3600 or slightly above 3600. You won't be able to go all the way up to 4000. You know, and I don't really consider that a huge deal because if your goal is to just run an XMP memory, then that's fine. It doesn't matter that you're stuck at 3600. Because if your goal is to go
sold
above
out.
3600, you have to start manually setting the FCLK, and there's probably a good chance that your CPU won't be stable if you raise the FCLK too high. Like at that point, you're basically memory
$1,800 for a
overclocking
3060 Ti, 16 gigs of RAM.
which would be the memory timings. So, you know, I don't really consider that a massive flaw on a motherboard like this. And if you're on 2 memory sticks, you're fine. So, you know, if you want a higher capacity, just run 2x16 instead of 4x8. If you're doing a Ryzen build right now, this is the motherboard I would look at. And if you don't like the price point, wait until we get to the MATX part of the video, because we're going to cover some cheaper boards in the MATX section. And if you don't like the feature set, well, then consider some of the more expensive boards that we're going to go over next. So, next up, we've got the B550 Aorus Pro V2. In terms of overall feature set, this is very similar to the A Pro from MSI, right? You've still got 6 SATA ports, though you do get a Thunderbolt header over there. There's an internal Type-C port. You still have troubleshooting LEDs, and you get an extra PCIe X4 slot from the chipset. So you don't really get, you know, anything like that. That's like the biggest extra connector that you get, along with the Thunderbolt header. So if you wanted to get a Thunderbolt add-in card, you can for this board. You get a better VRM. This is a 12 power stage VRM using 50 amp power stages, whereas this uses discrete MOSFETs. So in terms of, like, you can actually properly overclock a 5950X on this. Also, this uses a 6-layer PCB with a updated memory topology. This thing is really good at memory overclocking. Going up to DDR4 5000 on 2 memory sticks is no problem. And on 4 memory sticks, you should have no problem. Like, actually, this topology, if you're going to run, like, 4x32, can go all the way up to, like, 4000. If maybe a little bit higher than that, depending on your CPU. Or maybe a bit lower, you know. So, like, I don't know how my CPU compares to the, like, worst-case scenario 5950X. But, yeah, so the memory overclocking support on a motherboard like this is actually really, on this motherboard is really, really solid. And you also get somewhat more stuff in the rear I/O. You get 2.5 gig LAN from Realtek and Q Flash, which is Gigabyte's version of BIOS Flashback, and you get more USB ports, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, and this board's $180. Most of the, like, it's the 180-ish dollars, right? Sometimes it's on sale, some places it's more expensive, but it should be around 180. And I really like this board. If I consider like what I do with my personal system, like I would probably go for a board like this, because just getting a more expensive board than this just doesn't make sense to me. Like mostly you're just getting extra SATA ports or extra M.2 slots. You don't really see any massive noteworthy upgrades going with more expensive boards than this. Yeah, it really depends on your needs, but I think this is kind of the, like as an overclocker, I consider this the sweet spot motherboard. Anyway, let's move on to the first of the X570 boards, the Tough Gaming X570 Plus Wi-Fi from Asus. There is a non-Wi-Fi version of this board as well. Now, the reason you would consider this motherboard is because it comes with 8 SATA ports, which is just not something you can have on a B550 board. B550 boards only go up to 6. This has 8. So if you need a lot of SATA ports, this is a motherboard for you. If you want 2 M.2 slots, both of which are PCIe 4.0, this is also a motherboard for you. If you want great memory overclocking, the B550 Aorus Pro is better, because this is on a newer memory topology than this is. This is still a 6-layer PCB, so it's still going to clock memory better than the A Pro, but it's not going to be as good as the B550 Aorus Pro. So, yeah, VRM-wise, it's also very similar to what the Aorus Pro V2 has, so, you know, CPU overclocking is not going to really be any better on this either. You do get color-coded troubleshooting LEDs, but you don't get an internal Type-C header. And for the rear I/O, you get somewhat less USB ports. You get only 1 gig Realtek LAN, but you do get Wi-Fi 5. So if you want Wi-Fi, well, you should probably consider a B550 motherboard with Wi-Fi instead, because that's going to be a cheaper way of getting Wi-Fi. Like, the main reason this motherboard is on the list is for those people who just want a bunch of SATA ports, or, you know, dual M.2 slots that are PCIe 4.0. Because other than that, this board really doesn't do anything better than the Aorus Pro, as far as I'm concerned, at least. Oh, I guess you get Wi-Fi as well. So, yeah, anyway, moving on. Now we get a motherboard where, you know, we take the connectivity options to the limit. Like, now we've really maxed out what the chipset is capable of doing. The X570 Taichi, this thing is 200, oh, I think I forgot to mention, this is around $190, so it's also not that much. It's not that different, well, this tends to go on sale for less than $190 a lot of the time, but MSRP is $190. Anyway, this right here is the X570 Taichi. It's $270, and the whole reason you'd get this board, again, it's not because of the overclocking, because especially in the memory department, the Aorus Pro is just gonna beat the Taichi by kind of a lot. I almost said wipe the floor, but it's not quite that bad. That would be more like Aorus Pro versus cheap 4-layer motherboard, not, you know, kind of expensive 6-layer. But the thing is, this is on the older... It is on an older memory topology, so this just doesn't clock memory as well as some of the newer boards. But you do get a postcode power button, reset button, clear CMOS, so, you know, you'll know, like, the board will tell you that your memory settings are bad and what exactly is wrong with them, but you won't be able to do much about it. Anyway, the reason this gets onto the list is you get 8 SATA ports again, you get an internal Type-C header, but you get 3 M.2 PCIe 4.0 slots, and which, incidentally, you can't use all of the M.2 slots at the same time as all of the SATA ports. So it's one or the other. You can't have both at the same time. You do also get 2 PCIe slots running X8 connected to the CPU, which means the motherboard supports SLI, which isn't really that useful these days. But it also means if for whatever reason you just need an X8 slot, let's say you want to run 5 M.2 SSDs, well, you could buy a PCIe to M.2 adapter card, plug it into that second PCIe slot, and now you've got the option to run 5 M.2 SSDs. On other motherboards, you'd have to give up your primary PCIe slot for that, because the AM4 platform doesn't actually have that many PCIe lanes available, or like any other card that you can't run it through the chipset, it has to be connected to the CPU. Well, this motherboard is for that. And unfortunately, getting a motherboard with 2 X8 PCIe slots, really, it doesn't get cheaper than $250-ish. The cheapest motherboard with dual X8 slots is actually, like, compromised in sort of a bunch of other ways. So that's why this gets onto the list. This is just the most flexible. You get, you know, a bunch of M.2 slots, bunch of SATA ports, you get about as much PCIe flexibility as you're going to get on an on any AM4 motherboard. Solid memory overclock, like, you know, not the best memory overclocking, but it's still solid. For day-to-day usage, is going to be just fine. Solid with CPU overclocking, because again, this VRM is actually very, very similar to what you get on the TUF and the Aorus Pro, funnily enough. And then for the rear I.O., you get 1 gig LAN, Wi-Fi 6. The 1 gig LAN is Intel. You get a clear CMOS button, BIOS flashback button, and a okay number of USB ports. So yeah, this board is primarily for people who just want SATA ports and M.2 slots, and the, you know, dual PCIe, though there are other options for the dual PCIe X8 slots. So yeah, this is not the only option, but this is kind of the option that does everything at the same time. Well, except for the part where, you know, SATA ports and M.2 slots share bandwidth, so you can't actually plug in all of them at the same time, but you certainly have the option to choose with this motherboard down the line instead of when you're buying it. So anyway, let's get to the last ATX X570 motherboard, and that's the X570 Creator. This thing's $500, and the reason this gets onto the list is very, very simple. It has 10 gig LAN, it has 1 gig LAN, and it has dual Thunderbolt 3 ports. That's basically it. You also get BIOS flashback, Wi-Fi 6, less USB ports than what I'm comfortable with. Somebody's going to be like, you can adapt Type-C. Like, the thing is, the only thing that uses Type-C that I have is my phone. So to me, Type-C ports don't count as USB ports. Anyway, you get an internal Type-C header over there, 8 SATA ports. Unfortunately, only 2 M.2 slots. Yeah, like, this is also the only motherboard with this type of rear I.O. connectivity. So I'm assuming some of like one of the M.2 slots got converted into Thunderbolt ports. Anyway, you do get a postcode, power button, reset button, clear CMOS button. Same memory topology as what you get on the Taichi, which does mean that the Aorus Pro V2 is again going to be a better memory overclocker than the Creator. And VRM-wise, this is actually the strongest of the VRMs here, so this is a better VRM than what you get on some of the previous boards, but in terms of how that actually affects CPU overclocking, you're probably not going to notice a difference, because the Ryzen chips, they aren't really that difficult to power, and if you're using PBO, then the VRM doesn't matter basically at all. Like, as long as the VRM doesn't overheat, it just doesn't matter what it actually is. You know, you still get SLI support on this board, so you do get the 2 X8 PCIe slots. Yeah, so if you're doing a, you know, workstation build and you need the 10 gig and the Thunderbolt, then this is a really solid option for that. Anyway, let's move on to the MATX motherboards. Here we have the B550M Mortar from MSI, and this gets onto the list because, like, internally, it's a very solid motherboard. The rear I.O. is, in my opinion, not the best, but like, what you get so sort of inside the case is great. So you've got an internal Type-C, you get troubleshooting LEDs, 6 SATA ports, your PCIe slots are arranged so that you can actually plug in a triple slot GPU and still use the bottom PCIe slot if you need to. You get your 2 M.2 slots again. Second one is 3.0 because this is a B550 motherboard. And you also get the strongest VRM on a MATX motherboard you get for AM4. So this will do a great job of overclocking even a 5950X. Now, the bad news is that this is also on a 4-layer PCB. So in terms of memory overclocking, it'll be very comparable to this. That's the one downside. I can't tell if any of the MATX motherboards are 6 layers for the other vendors. Actually, no. For Gigabyte, I know for a fact they aren't. For ASRock, I know for a fact they aren't. And with Asus, I can't tell. And if the Asus one is a 4-layer, then it's going to be comparable to this. And the Asus one doesn't really have the same sort of feature set as this. So, yeah, that's why this gets onto the list. And, you know, if you're not trying to push really high memory frequencies, the memory topology just doesn't affect you. Anyway, moving on, we've got the B550M Aorus Pro-P. This thing's around $120, and do get the -P version. The non-P version is significantly worse in terms of the VRM. The -P is perfectly fine for use with a 5950X. The non-P version is going to run really hot if you decide to overclock. So, yeah, that's why... And the thing is, like, the non-P version costs the same. So there's very little reason to get that version instead, in my opinion. Anyway, there are some downsides to this board, because this is a whole lot of VRM attached to not a whole lot of motherboard. So there's no troubleshooting LEDs. There's no internal Type-C port. You only get 4 SATA ports. You do get, 2 M.2 slots. The second one is 3.0 again. And we get the PCIe X16 slot in a location where if your GPU takes up anything more than 2 PCIe slots, well, you're not going to get to use that last PCIe slot, so that's very unfortunate. Effectively, you have the connectivity of an ITX board here in terms of PCIe because of this slot spacing, which is, in my opinion, a bit dumb. You do get an upgrade in terms of the rear I/O, at least in my opinion, compared to the Mortar. Well, you do give up the Wi-Fi, but you do
Yeah, so the wife had to wake me up today. That's what happened. The wife just woke me up and said, hey, by the way, it's after 11. I'm like, oh my God.
You know, when it comes to this channel and the content we've been putting out on it, I don't think anyone is going to argue with the fact that we've gone into really great detail on the 1,000-Year Blood War arc. When it comes to Bleach's final arc, we've gone into detail about the
Well, that's not true. We don't know if we're gonna get a drop yet. I gotta ask a person on Discord to see if they have any word. Also, we should still get an AMD drop today. That's pretty consistent. So, at the very least, we should see that.
Hey
I'm gonna
guys,
go
what's
ask
happening?
the
Nihat
person
here with Film
on
Comics
Discord
Explained. And today,
if they
we'll
have
be
any
taking a
word
look
yet.
at Thanos the Mad Titan, exploring his origins in the comics.
Yeah,
his
and if not,
motivation
we'll be
behind
here
the search for
tomorrow.
the Infinity Stones,
And
the
if
subsequent
it doesn't
power
drop
granted to
tomorrow,
him from each one.
then next week should be
Thanos, the Dark Lord, as
100%
he's known by his loyal
drop,
underlings,
and it
and
should
the
be
Mad
a
Titan
huge
by the
drop.
galactic community
But
at large, was a powerful
I'm still
Titan warlord
pretty
that
confident
ruled
this
over a
week
distant
because
region of space,
it's
which he
been too
commanded
long
with a number
since we
of
got
armies
into the
that had
major
sworn
drop.
allegiance to him, including but not limited to the Chitauri, the Outriders, and the Black Order featured in Avengers: Infinity War. In the films, having witnessed the destruction of his home planet due to overpopulation and the rapid consumption of resources, Thanos saw
Yep, I'll
firsthand
put
the
on
dangers
slow
of
mode.
an unchecked populace. And with this, the
We're gonna
Titan
be
set
here
out
for a
to
little
bring
while.
balance to the universe.
Well, at least I'm gonna be
While
here.
his view of the
I may not
universe was
talk
based
the
on
entire
logical
time, but
observation,
I'm
his
gonna be
means
here
of
till
achieving
at
stability
least
was severely warped, as he intended to
12:30
use the power of the
maybe
Infinity
even
Stones
2:30.
to exterminate exactly half of all life.
AMD
in the
dropped late
universe.
last time. They dropped at
Thanos
almost
was one of the last sons of Alaz,
1:30
progenitor
to
of the
2
second
o'clock
colony of Eternals
last
on
week.
Titan, and
So keep that
Susa,
in mind.
the last survivor of the original settlement of Eternals. Born with purple, hide-like skin and a massive body due to his deviant syndrome, the boy was treated as an outcast and was despised by even his own family, especially his mother, who was driven mad at the sight of the baby and attempted to kill him after his birth. Despite his unusual appearance and introverted nature, Thanos was generally well accepted by his peers, who saw him as a mild-mannered intellectual that dreamed of becoming a scientist, much like his neglectful father. However, unknown to everyone around him, the boy began developing an unhealthy fascination with death, and though he drew pictures of deceased creatures, the thought of actually performing a dissection sickened him. Thanos' life soon reached a tipping point when a mysterious girl convinced him to explore a dangerous cave together with his friends in an attempt to overcome his fear of killing. A cave-in separated Thanos from his friends for 3 days, during which he refused to even think of murdering the other creatures that lurked underground for sustenance. But when he eventually found his friends, they had all been killed by the very animals he'd refused to destroy. This would prove to be the first of many
Should
lessons
you get
in
an
his
AMD
life that
or
helped him shape his ultimate view that
NVIDIA
death was required in
video
order for
card?
life to thrive.
Honestly,
by the time he was a teenager, Thanos excelled
get
academically
whatever can
and
give
learned
you the
faster than he was
best
being taught. He also began
frame
vivisecting
rate
creatures in secret
that you can
to learn
actually
more
get in
about
your
his
hands.
abnormal genetic makeup. And the girl that had initially helped
Whether
him
it
overcome his
be
fear of
the
taking a
AMD,
life,
the
soon became his
AMD,
most
look, okay.
trusted confidant.
The NVIDIA cards are
His
better.
search for ultimate knowledge soon escalated.
Honestly,
into
the
becoming a
DLSS and the ray
prototype
tracing
cadence,
are a
carrying out
big
the first murders
bonus.
that had ever been committed
But
in the history of
if
Titan.
you can get a 6800 XT or something along those lines. That's still going to be a rock solid card. It's still going to be a
before
good
taking
card.
the life of his mother, hoping to find in her body the key to who he was both physically and spiritually. This entire experience ultimately left him traumatized and led the Titan
let me
to
put on
flee
slow
his
mode,
own
hold
world, finding a menial job with a pirate crew and witnessing the dangers of overpopulation from the planets that they visited, which were all being used unsustainably.
I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right. Yet to fail, nonetheless.
Thanos also fathered many children during these years of exploration and travel, all of which he'd abandoned, taking after his neglectful father. Returning to his home planet in secret, Thanos tried once again to woo the mysterious girl from his youth, who, after learning of the many women he'd been with, demanded that he proved he belonged to only her. The Titan then set out on a merciless campaign of death, killing all of his wives, their offspring, and razing every planet that they stumbled upon. In the comics, after his impressive display of dedication to her, his confidant soon became his
If your
companion,
marriage
and
depends
Thanos
on a
began to
graphics
realize
card,
that
you
nobody
have
else could
bigger
see his
problems
love,
than a
after which
graphics
she
card.
revealed that she was actually the physical manifestation of death itself. Everything that Thanos did after that moment, including the search for the Infinity Stones, was motivated by his desire to please death itself.
To challenge them is to court death.
During his conquest over the universe, he'd earned such a fearful reputation as an unrelenting galactic warlord that he was considered to be among the most powerful beings in the universe, way before he even had the Infinity Gauntlet. In the film adaptations, sometime after the fall of Titan, Thanos began to believe that the universe's rapid increase in life was depleting its finite resources at an unsustainable rate, which would eventually cause the destruction of the universe itself. Wanting to avoid this fate, Thanos became a world conqueror.
Alright,
moving
so the
throughout
official word from the
universe and
source
destroying
right
half of all
now
life within the
is
planet he
there is
conquered,
no
inspired by his
word
ideology of
as of
balancing
yet
the
today.
universe.
I feel like I'm freaking.
Though Thanos still retained the same hubris and
I'm like
violent
reading the
calculated
expression off a
behavior
damn
shared by his
groundhog.
Greek counterpart. The greatest departure and alteration from the source material would have to be his motivation. In the comics, Thanos was
So the
obsessed with
groundhog
the female
says-
personification of death, whom he had loved, and it was a desire to please
Yeah,
her
there
that
is
led
no
him to
word
become
from the
most
source
powerful
today.
being in the
He's
universe.
not seeing any
This changed
alerts
for the films,
out
and his
for
obsession
a
with
drop.
death was replaced with an obsession for balance in the universe, and as a result, death has now become a means to his ultimate goal.
Pretty, isn't it?
I'm still going to be here. We're still having an AMD drop, but from the looks of it, on the surface,
By far
it
the
doesn't look
strongest
like we're
and most
getting a
powerful
drop from
Titanium
Best Buy
Eternal,
today.
Thanos was a superhuman mutant whose massive, heavy-bodied form was born with the capacity to synthesize cosmic energy, a ridiculous fact in and of itself. Over time,
Or maybe
he has
we
also
are.
increased his
I don't know.
powers through bionic amplification, mystical enhancements, and as a result,
It is
being
April Fool's.
resurrected by death.
I'm not
Superhuman
trolling
strength.
you.
Thanos possesses
I
vast
hope he's not
superhuman
trolling me,
strength,
'cause
the
that'd be
full limits of
funny.
which aren't yet known. Death has also increased his strength to levels rivaling or surpassing those of the physically strongest Eternals. As mentioned before, he could also augment his strength with cosmic energy.
But we still
which
got
is how
about,
he was able to crush
at
the
minimum,
Tesseract to reveal the space
1
rock
hour
in one hand.
before the Best Buy window
Superhuman
pretty much
intelligence.
closes up.
Quite possibly his most dangerous asset
After
would have
that,
to be his mind, with his intellect
then it's
being
just AMD
dedicated
we're
to
waiting on.
enhancing his own powers so that he could perform his ultimate goal. He's a genius in virtually all known fields of advanced science, and has created technology far exceeding that found in civilizations that have been around much longer than he has. Superhuman speed and stamina. Despite his massive muscular body, Thanos is capable of running and moving at speeds greater than both Captain America and the Black Panther. His musculature also produces almost no fatigue toxins during
And I
physical
have to do it.
activity, and as a result, the
If
Titan
this is
can
your
fight
first
for
time here,
extended periods of time without breaking a sweat.
well, I'll
Immortality.
get back to that. My tea's here.
Like all Eternals, Thanos is immortal in the sense that he's immune to all known diseases and infections, as well as to the effects of aging, which is how he's been able to reign as the greatest warlord in existence for thousands of years without any change in his power or appearance. Superhuman
All right.
durability.
If this is your first time here,
Thanos has incalculable levels
you
of
must fight.
resilience and durability, granted to him by his
Make
Titan
sure you're
physiology
in Discord,
and
a
subsequent
member of our Discord
modifications,
server.
allowing him to handle the Infinity
When drops
Stones
do
without
happen
being
from
harmed,
any
as well
of
as
any of
enabling
the
him to wield
sources,
the power of the Infinity
links are
Gauntlet
automatically
without strain.
posted there
In
first
fact, the only known
before
weapon
YouTube.
capable of destroying him was
That's not
actually
by
Thor's
choice. It's
Stormbreaker,
because
which was the most
everything
powerful weapon formed
involved
out
in
of
getting a
Doom.
link
We actually
to
saw
auto
this
post
weapon
on
being
YouTube
forged
has
in
the
Avengers
has a
Infinity
delay to
War,
it,
and
and I
was
can't
even
do
used
anything
against
about
Thanos
that.
by Thor, piercing his chest and nearly killing him, leading Thanos to joke that he should have gone for the head, precisely because he knew that that would have killed him. Accelerated healing.
So, link is in the
Despite his
description
extraordinary
for our Discord
durability,
server. You
it
can
is
type in
possible to injure
exclamation
Thanos.
point.
However, like all Eternals, Thanos
Discord
is
in
capable of
chat, and it will
regenerating
give you the
damaged
link.
tissue at a much greater speed and efficiency than most superhuman beings. Energy manipulation. Thanos has displayed great versatility in the use of energy projection. He's
Do it
demonstrated
now.
the ability to project pure energy as a concussive force, infrared heat beams from his eyes, and disruptor beams that could strike separate targets at once. Teleportation. Thanos can teleport himself across unknown distances through the link that he has with his techno-mystical transport chair, an incredible device that simultaneously acted as his throne chair and proof of his genius. Superhuman agility and reflexes.
When you enter the server, keep in mind
Despite his massive
you'll
size,
be automatically
Thanos'
given
agility,
all
balance,
roles.
and bodily coordination were
This
enhanced to
includes
levels
things
beyond
you
the
don't want to be
capabilities of
notified
our
about.
finest
Let's
athletes.
say you don't want to
The
be
Titan
notified
also
about
possessed incredulous
CPUs.
reflexes, as we're
Well,
seeing with his ability to effortlessly
it may not
dodge
work
through
right now
blows
because
from
there's
the
too many
Hulk,
people
prior to
trying to
hitting
do
him
it,
multiple
so you may
times
have to do
before
it
the
later.
Hulk had a chance to respond.
There's a room
And though
called
he was
notification
wielding the Power Stone
roles.
during this conflict, we should
There
know
you
that
can
he did not
emote
activate it during the
slash
fight.
emote,
We should also keep
unemote.
in mind that all of his powers and abilities are what he's
The
capable of without the
rooms
Infinity Stones.
that you don't want to see. It's a little confusing, but once you do it, you'll completely understand it. Go to notification roles room. You can emote, unemote to remove a room. As I said, it's confusing. If you don't have a room, you can just emote to the room and it will give it to you. You'll actually see it appear in your menu.
There's a little pee coming out of me right now.
In the history of the comics, the Stones were actually a part of the first being in the universe, who split himself apart due to the loneliness he felt from being the only thing in existence, an action which tore him into 6 pieces that represented existence itself. Each piece made up a fraction of his original power, but when combined together,
That's actually
they granted
not
its
a
user
bad
mastery over the
idea.
universe. The Power Stone increased its user's strength and durability, enhancing
One
virtually any known
command
superhuman ability, as well as
to
granting
remove
them
them
the
all.
power to manipulate pure energy. This stone also supplied
I think I will actually see what I can whip up there, because that might be helpful for the people that only want like one thing. They can just type that command, clears the slate, and they can just add the one room.
The powerful Reality Stone essentially altered reality, similar to the
All right,
effects
I'll
of the
look into
Cosmic
it.
Cube, but to a much greater degree. The Soul Stone gave its wearer the power to observe, attack, as well as steal a person's
So
soul
far, the
and
source
spirit.
has been right
The Time Stone
for the last
enabled
few
its use of time
weeks.
travel, stop,
He
slow
predicted,
down, or speed up the general
was it
flow
the
of
week,
time,
last
accelerate
week?
or slow down ages,
Last
as well as
Friday,
giving them the ability
he
to
said,
see into the future.
no,
The
no,
Mind Stone gave
no
its
graphic
user
card
near
drops,
limitless
but there is
psychic
going to be a
abilities,
console
including
drop,
empathy,
and he was
telekinesis,
100%.
After Thanos was able to
100%.
acquire each of the stones, he was able to literally snap his fingers.
So I
and
trust the
destroy
source.
half of all
If
life
he
in
says
the
there's no
universe.
information, that there's no alerts going out that there's going to be a big drop, I'm pretty confident at this point that we aren't going to see a Best Buy drop today.
Seriously leaning on the cauldron of the cosmos.
Thanos is a dark visionary.
No,
Yes,
no,
his
but he
actions are extreme,
definitively
but he does
said
have the best interests
that
of the
day
universe as a
there
whole in
will
mind
be.
with every decision that he makes. There's no mistaking that acting on his will guarantees the survival of the universe, while not following through on his plan could potentially mean the end of the universe.
And when we faced extinction, I offered a solution.
Genocide.
But random, dispassionate, fair to rich and poor alike.
Because information from behind the scenes has presented
I
itself
plan on covering the
that
Infinity
says
Stones in
there's
more
no
detail
information of a
down the
drop
line,
today.
as well as exploring the powers and origins of a few
Unfortunately, I
Marvel
can only get
characters
that
we're about to see in
information
the upcoming
the
films,
day
like
of,
Adam Warlock and Captain
around an
Marvel,
hour or
who
two
played an
before
important
we
role in
might
the
get a
comics
drop.
with regards to stopping Thanos.
Based on our
Well,
current
that's all for
time,
today, folks. Thanks
it's
to
well
all of you
within
guys
that
who
time frame to
requested we
say,
take a look at
okay,
Thanos.
if
If there's
the
any other
alerts
stuff
haven't
you'd like
gone
me
out,
to check
we're
out,
probably
please
not
don't
going to get a
hesitate to
drop.
ask.
Having
As
said that,
always,
I would
it's
still
been a
hang out for
pleasure.
the next
Nihat
hour.
here with Film Comics Explained. Thanks for stopping
Because
by.
Best Buy has dropped up until 12:30ish, and we're still waiting on the AMD thing, which might even be a little bit after 12:30. It was last week. Last week it was 1:30 that AMD dropped. I also do know that, well, I'd have to verify it some more from another potential source. If it's legit, I do know that Best Buy is amassing cards, at least from one location, or rather one region of the country, which I didn't even get to confirm which one. I saw a screenshot of an inventory system that did show that little region, it was a small region, had 170 cards of 3070s. I haven't been able to verify that yet. I haven't gotten, sat down with the person, asked them to screen share privately. So we'll see, but this is just what I've seen. Well, 170 cards of just the 3070 in like a small tri-state area is actually not too bad. And there's no face reveal. Go look at my IP video where I talk about internet troubles. I'm on the video. Oh, I'm not doing an OnlyFans. Could I send you my bill to see if I can be all right with gaming at AMD card? I'm a noob when it comes to this. You're not gonna set. You mean Can you send me? Because when you say you're gonna send me your build, I'm like, send me your computer. But I think you're gonna do like a PC part picker list. I think that's what you mean. Yeah, whatever. And keep in mind, from the little bit I saw, it was mostly Linus's video, where they were comparing the two cards. It did look like that the AMD card had better frame time, though. So, that's a bonus towards the AMD side. Better frame time equals you might be a little better competitively. I don't know who here has actually checked it out, but while we wait, if you haven't checked out Solar Opposites on Hulu and you like Rick and Morty, you should check it out. They did an amazing Chad episode this season because it's out now. Yeah, season 2 just came out. Just wait till you get to the Chad Big Dick Energy episode. It's amazing. Like, really good. To anybody that's late, make sure you're on Discord. Drop links will be posted there first. Having said that, the source has said there are no alerts out indicating that there's going to be a drop today for Best Buy. Now, that doesn't mean there won't be, but it means that there, typically there's an alert before they do a drop for the internal staff, and there hasn't been yet. Wait, what happened on Discord?